Welcome to the Baseball Insiders Prospect Show. I am Adam Weinrib, joined as I am every Tuesday by Fansided MLB's Eric Cole, and we are talking again week 2 of having minor league actual data, not spring training, not speculative, and we are here to tell you which prospects have already made themselves almost indispensable big league call-ups with their first couple of weeks of action, who's close to the precipice, who's one step closer to the edge, and I personally am about to break. Plus, risers and fallers from the last week of minor league action, and a couple of players who made major league rosters to start the season who are dangerously close to falling back to the minors. Either it's going to happen or they should be under consideration for a demotion. Eric and I will break all of that down. Eric, happy Tuesday. As always, happy break in the minor league week. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's the minor leagues have been fun this year. A lot of the big names have put on some shows. Others have struggled, but that's part of the fun of it. Is you kind of see how guys develop and what hurdles they have to overcome, and guys coming out of nowhere to turn into they look like they're Babe Ruth for a week or two, especially early in the season. That's when some really weird stuff can happen. But overall, it's been a great time. I'm happy to be here with you. I am loving the hat. I've got my 95 World Series hat signed by one Greg Maddux over my shoulder here. But I'm afraid to wear it. So you are a braver man than I.
This puppy is obviously the 1975 World Series. Look, I'm a supporter of the Cincinnati Reds. I'm a big fan of what they stand for and their history and their program. And then I don't remember who they beat in the World Series that year, but I'm sure it's somebody I can hate. So just an interesting tidbit. Think about that. Thank you, everybody, for joining us again. Fansided MLB's Baseball Insiders Prospect Show. You can join us in the Discord if you want to ask Eric questions between shows, or myself or Robert Murray, who'll be back here on Wednesday as well as Friday talking baseball. You can also subscribe to the Moonshot if you have not. That's our weekly baseball email newsletter where the Fansided MLB team, including Robert Murray, Eric Cole, and myself, break down all the biggest stories in the big leagues with humor, insight, behind-the-scenes info, all that and more on the Baseball Insiders feed on fansided.com, fansided.com/baseball-insiders. The latest rumors and notes from Robert, humor and insight from yours truly, prospect columns accompanying this show from Eric, the best of baseball and pop culture from the Fansided MLB staff writer team. So check that out today. I apologize to Ken Griffey Jr. for being unfamiliar with his game in the photography department. Turns out actually captured the most iconic Masters photographs in like 20 years of Rory McIlroy's win. So tip my 1975 World Series hat to you. Show off my hat hair. Good job, Ken Griffey Jr. Okay, Eric, let's buckle down. Let's do this. I'm thinking about, trying to address the needs of the MLB fans who are watching our show, might be getting into it or listening to it for the first time. And I'm sure a lot of people are keyed in on prospects, like the lower minors. We've got a lot of questions we always try to answer about the lower minors and people making their, early headway. But a lot of baseball fans are wondering, all right, great. Who's getting called up soon? Who is inches from their MLB debut? And a couple of names stand out in the early going for people who deserve to already be there. Some familiar, some not quite so. And top of the list, and I think deservedly top of the list, based on the way that the Sacramento or what have you Athletics have treated their roster to start the season, Nick Kurtz, with his 7 bombs and 68 Bs, has to be pretty close to receiving the call, especially after the A's have already, taken the liberties of giving Jacob Wilson this run, seeing what they can do. So my question to you is, do we see Nick Kurtz in the first half of the 2025 season even sooner? I mean, he's at AAA Vegas. There is nothing left for him to prove as far as I am concerned.
On merit, I think he should be called up in the first half, but that's where things get a little bit tricky, right? Because you have an Athletics team that doesn't seem particularly motivated to win right now, is more focused on building their new stadium out in Las Vegas and playing out the string in Sacramento. You look at Kurtz just based purely on how he's been playing, and he looks like a big league hitter. For my money, he's the best power hitting prospect in baseball right now. It doesn't look like a guy who's just selling out for power and is just running into bad pitches. This guy goes up with a plan every single at bat. Everyone on the other team knows that they can't pitch to him, and it doesn't matter. And when you have that kind of skill set where a guy has a really good eye at the plate, will take walks when he can. But if a guy makes a mistake, he's willing to drive it 450 feet. Kurtz is gonna. So based purely on merit and the fact that there's no one on the Athletics that should be remotely close to blocking Kurtz, at least one spot, you would think that he would be in the conversation more. But my feeling with the Athletics in particular is that they would more likely defer to wanting to preserve service time. Now that still allows for a first half call up, right? Like you just have to wait basically towards the end of May, maybe a little bit later than that. Again, I expect Kurtz to keep performing throughout, but when you're already drafting really high in the draft, the PPI incentives to bring guys up early don't matter as much because you already have a big bonus pool, and you're going to be able to pay the guys you want to pay in the draft. The extra picks don't help you quite as much because the picks aren't overly high. So do I think that he'll get called up in the first half? Probably, but I'm a little bit skeptical because, again, this is like a team that just doesn't seem to have a whole lot of urgency around what they're doing right now. They're just kind of slowly accumulating talent, and then maybe they want to field a good team once they get to Vegas. But right now, I'm a little bit skeptical, but it's not has nothing to do with what Kurtz is doing. I think he is good enough to be in the big leagues, but it has to do with the organization that he plays for.
One of my favorite draft what-ifs from last year already is that a lot of people were speculating that the Pirates would end up with Kurtz. They have a clear long-term need at first base that they think they solve with Spencer Horwitz. Who knows? It's not like they passed on Nick Kurtz. They go ahead and get leapfrogged by the A's, and everyone's very confused by that. The Pirates make out okay, too. They get Connor Griffin, who we're all sort of agreed is maybe the best prep prospect from last year, one of the best prep prospects we've seen in recent years. Seems to be working out well for both squads. Both teams are also franchises that have similar service time manipulation concerns, which is why I now present you with Bubba Chandler, who it's not like we weren't all over him preseason. We expected greatness. So far, we've gotten it. Hit 101.5 over the weekend, which would match Hunter Green, his hopefully future division rival for the fastest fastball. This season, very few people can reach that rarefied air. He can, and he did. He's doing what he needs to do at AAA Indy so far. But again, the Pittsburgh Pirates are weirdly stuck in between. Like Paul Skeens didn't make the opening day roster last year. They lose PPI because they hold him down. But Jared Jones did. They gave themselves one bite at the extra first-round pick apple and didn't receive it. Thomas Harrington gets called up early this year and then already demoted. So Chandler, I wouldn't say wasting away, but I would say got your eyes soon as that service time clock is up. We're looking at a similar promotion to the one that Skeens received last year. What say you here on the flamethrower?
Very similar bucket to the Athletics in my mind. When going into camp, there was already a lot of people hoping and praying that the Pirates would carry Bubba Chandler on their roster. And all he's done since then is look better than that. Better than the version of him that already became like a top 25 prospect in baseball at the end of last season. The fastball's really live. The extra, I didn't think he was going to be throwing 101. I don't think we're going to see that a ton out of him. But at the same time, high 90s seems like the floor. The breaking stuff looks really good. He's landing it for strikes. Again, he's got 10 starts in AAA. So if you want to make one argument as to why maybe you give him a little bit more time, because that's just not a lot of time for especially a guy drafted as a prep arm to go against more advanced hitters. Maybe you can make the argument, but that doesn't add up with what the Pirates have done elsewhere. It's very clearly service time manipulation, and it's sad because the Pirates could have again missed out on a PPI pick because they didn't call up Paul Skeens. Paul Skeens is kind of a weird scenario because he didn't have a lot of time in the minor leagues either. Mm-hmm. And, if he flames out being called up early, then all of a sudden they get set on fire for that. But everything they do is about limiting costs and cutting costs. And I think that they were willing to roll the dice on Jared Jones because they thought he was less likely to kind of reach a ceiling where he would become prohibitively expensive in arbitration earlier, et cetera, probably. And also wasn't overly likely to be a PPI guy anyway. So, but in Skeens, you get an extra year's service time. In Chandler, again, this is a top flight arm in the minor leagues, one of the best pitchers in the minor league system right now. You're going to try to get an extra year of service time out of him because, again, this is another guy that the Pirates have no interest in signing long-term. So they just want him as long as possible, as cheap as possible. And the way you do that is this. And you don't care, in the Pirates' mind, you just care about saving money and being good enough to attract fans, not actually accumulating the most talent, which would be the PPI argument, or, to actually create the best, on-field product, which is, frankly, something Pittsburgh fans haven't seen in 25 years, maybe.
Let's be good enough to attract fans, but evil enough to throw fans bricks in a landfill is what I'm hearing.
That was truly terrible. And acting like, oh, well, we've been doing this all the time when you just dig up all these memorial bricks, throw them away, and don't say anything to anybody and just hope they don't notice. It's absolutely gross.
Bob Nutting pulled off the very funny move of like sending a personal letter to one guy being like, I really spit the bit on that one. I feel terrible as the steward of generations of Pirates fans. It's like, okay, well, I mean, again, a retroactive apology only goes so far, but you can rectify this.
Especially when you do the Clemente signs change like a week after that.
Yeah, we are so sorry to the fine people of Surfside. He gets tapped on the shoulder and reminded he's supposed to be sorry to Roberto Clemente's family. He's like, oh, right, of course, the family of legendary Roberto. Yeah, that's who people are upset about. Yeah, Chandler, he's got enough minor league track record that I think you'd feel comfortable bringing him up right now. Skeens, you're right. It was in between. Nick Kurtz, a hilarious minor league trajectory, by the way. 7 games at A-ball last year, 5 at Double-A Midland. Hope he really enjoyed his time with the Rockhounds, got comfortable in the community. And then 14 games in Vegas so far in the PCL this year, just spending about a couple of weeks at every level, laying waste to the pitching in various spots. And Sacramento, again, that's the other thing. Like, look, if they call up Nick Kurtz at the right moment, Sacramento is just another AAA ballpark. Like, he could go off for 34 homers May through the end of the season.
And a PCO one at that could be fun.
Yeah. So, hey, something to keep an eye on, and maybe, honestly, to me, the most exciting possible promotion here. All right, I'm going to put on an annoying Red Sox fan hat here as well, because we have heard from plenty of Bostonian pundits about what is wrong with this team, must fix, 8-10 to start the year. They were 6-4 like a week ago. That shows many people how quickly baseball can change, but it showed Boston fans how already impatient they should be with what the Red Sox have provided them. And I will say it makes sense because there are some levers that the Red Sox could pull that they're not. I'm not sitting here and saying Tony Maserati, I think, said you got to teach Roman Anthony first base, get Tristan Casas on the next bus to Seattle. I'm not going that far, but if you've got Anthony in the minors raking, and yes, he's going to create positional difficulties for you, and you might have to DFA Masataka Yoshida or do something you don't feel comfortable with. And I get why they're not doing that, but every day that goes by, every calendar spot you X off, every tick of the clock is a moment when you are not maximizing your potential to be the best team that you could be. And Roman Anthony and Marcelo Mayer could help the Red Sox, maybe one more than the other instantly. So what say you about the potential shuffle in Boston?
I mean, these are both incredibly talented players in Mayer and Anthony. And I think that down the line, whatever team they play for is going to be better off having them. I'm a little bit skeptical that Mayer can make an impact this year with Boston, and he seems like the guy who's the most likely to be traded to me. When you already had to do so much, like these machinations to even make the Alex Bregman, Trevor Story, Christian Campbell infield work and involve pissing off one of your franchise players along the way. I'm just not really sure where he would play. And part of the problem too is like he's only hitting 200 and down in the minor leagues. He doesn't look like he's not pressing the issue at all right now. He's just a guy who's really talented, obviously had the great moment in the spring breakout game, is one of the best prospects in baseball, but he's not like he doesn't look like he's like, I need to be in the big leagues right now and I'll be one of your best players when you call me up. Roman Anthony's a little bit different. One, the positional, the outfield situation for the Red Sox feels more likely that he could possibly find a way to get some playing time. Maybe you don't play Ceddanne Raffaele every day, even though I like him a lot. Maybe you can kind of rotate in Will Abreu. Maybe you can even get him some DH spots, assuming that you're going to jump ship from Tristan Casas and you can put Devers over at first. I think there's some ways where you can get him some playing time, and he's also playing better than Mayer is right now. Again, not amazing. He's hitting like 260, 270, something like that, but he's still drawing a lot of walks. He's still hitting for power. So you don't necessarily worry, just like hasn't played a whole lot. If he has one good game, his numbers look insane, right? So I think that in Anthony's case, I'd be a lot more open to having him get a call up. I think that will happen sometime in the first half. As for Mayer, I don't really see the path as well, and I actually think he's going to end up being a trade deadline chip.
Interesting. And maybe someday he will break up the no-hitter of whatever pitcher he is traded for. So Sandy Alcantara, you're on watch. Yeah, I hear you on that. I had Anthony as my rookie of the year pick. I can't adjust that in good faith. It's only been 2 weeks of the regular season, but they got to hurry up a little bit if they want to make that a reality. Okay, let's talk about a couple of maybe players further down below the surface. Risers and fallers from the last week of action. Keep everybody updated on what you might be missing if you're not paying close attention to minor league baseball Let's start with the helium folks, the people on Rise Alert who might be adding to their reputation based on the most recent action. Who you got for me?
I've got a couple names here. Not names that maybe are going to be overly familiar to fans, but guys that you should keep an eye on. One's Rodney Green Jr. He plays for the Athletics, which means that he's been overshadowed quite a bit by Kurtz. But this is a guy who can really run, has a lot of athleticism and tools at his disposal. They're just not, going into the draft, the reason why he slipped to the 4th round was because they just didn't know how much swing and miss he was going to have as a pro. But he had a really good week last week. Hit 276, 364, 759 with 4 homers down at high A. You'll take that anytime. The numbers the rest of the season have been a little bit dicier, and I will say that I'm a little bit skeptical that we're going to see this kind of power production out of him repeatedly. But this is a guy who can really run. I think he's a center fielder. Again, you kind of bet on athleticism, and you just kind of hope that the hitting works out. This is a good sign this last week or so that he has the ability to kind of impact the ball right with any amount of regularity. If he's a 15 or 20 home run guy, this is a guy who could give you a bunch of production because he's going to give you a lot of value on the base paths. I think he could end up being a Gold Glove defender out in center. The other name is the Dodgers' Alex Freeland, who's for a long time has been on their prospect rankings, but is a guy who's he's kind of good at a lot of things. He's not awesome at anything, but he'll hit 260, 270, 280 against anybody. He'll hit for some power. He'll steal some bases. He's a solid to above average defender at shortstop, and he's a surefire shortstop. But maybe he's not a Gold Glove guy out there. He's not going to be doing Andrelton Simmons type stuff when he's out there. But at the same time, he was on folks' radar, but wasn't overly exciting when you have a system that also has Josue DePaula, Dalton Rushing. You have these really big name. Zaire Hope's another guy who's kind of jumped onto the scene as well. He's very good. I didn't think much of him at the time, but last week, he was one of the better hitters in the minor leagues, and he has a 905 OPS through his first 15 games. Now, that could get pretty interesting in LA because it's not like the Dodgers were overly enthusiastic about playing Mookie Betts at shortstop. And, maybe they want to realign their outfield to put him back out there, get him off his legs a little bit. And then Freeland's high enough in the minors that he could be a guy that could be kind of in the conversation for that. Maybe not now, but relatively soon, I think.
It's definitely good to note on that because again, it's not the kind of guy you're going to hear about. Is one tool going to overwhelm you? No, not quite. Is this sort of whole better than the sum of its parts going to convince Mookie Betts to move off shortstop instead of, whatever he has as his personal plan for himself? It remains odd that he's so, diligently pursuing that personal goal, but comfort over, hey, whatever, comfort over party. I don't know. But Hyun Kim also happens to be hitting 462-foot tanks in AAA. So the Dodgers have extended Tommy Edman. So lots of versatile pieces on long-term deals in LA. Add Freeland's control, it does get interesting. Now, to the downside of the last week of action, and I hate to even prompt you here because I know you're going to talk smack about someone who I care about very deeply. But what about a couple of fallers from the early April? Again, early April, not determinative. We are not rubbing dirt on anybody or burying them or I don't know, whatever you do with dirt in a scenario where someone's bad. But what about a couple of prospects who are falling or at least losing momentum early?
I will say that I do love both of these players and that no one should move them down to rankings because the first couple weeks of the minor league season haven't gone particularly well for them. But there are a couple guys that are high profile that stuck out to me as struggling a bit. And there's a lot of particularly hitters that are struggling right now. They're further behind pitchers, getting the timing right. And when you're kind of brand new to the pro game, you're going to, have a little bit more of that offseason rust. And you haven't really seen this type of pitching a whole lot in your career yet. So I'm not going to be, no one should be killing these guys, but both have struggled. One is the Padres' Leo Vries. Got another really aggressive assignment from the Padres. They just keep running this guy out there. He's like, yep, you're in high A now. Good luck. And, again, you don't want to see one of your top prospects have a 422 OPS to start a season, period. But it's a really small sample. Everyone loves this kid. Everyone. The athleticism, the potential, the work ethic, what he can do at the plate, what he can do in the, just with you don't see guys with this type of body that can hit for power, can run, can field, can do it all. He's just young. And at the end of the day, I hope that he can put things together. I suspect that he will. What my suspicion is that being at high A, he'll get a little slow start. Then once we get into May, he'll start heating up again. He might even be pushing for a promotion to Double A before before the season ends. So I'm not super worried about him. The other name is Adam's boy, Kyle Teel, who I am gobsmacked is struggling because he just always hits, was just always a top performer. I had him as the best catching prospect in baseball. I don't care what people say about Dalton Rushing. And again, he's still drawing a bunch of walks, but the strikeouts are really paying up. He's like striking out close to 40% of the time right now. I would have never bet on him being a sub 200 hitter, but that's kind of where he is right now. Now, this was a situation where I felt like the White Sox might have called him up relatively early, but his struggles might get where I find that to be a bit less unlikely. But again, this is still one of the best catching prospects in baseball. I'm not worried about him long term. I just wish he had played better because there was a stronger likelihood that we could see him in the majors and Adam could fanboy over him.
Yeah, and White Sox fans too, just like sitting there wondering, like, okay, what high upside moves can we make early in this? Like, we know we're going nowhere. You know what? We Chase may drop this a start. Like, what else do we have cooking? And then they're just getting Greg Jones and claiming Joshua Palacios and doing that thing that bad teams do, where they're just like, here are some bodies. And then the fans of the bad team are like, what about the guys who like kind of matter? And they're like, don't you love these bodies? It's like, okay, fine. But you're right. Teel, the swing and miss is the one thing that I would have never expected from him. Like the best part of his set of tools is the hit tool, just putting bat on ball, making solid contact, finding holes, even in situations where he's under duress. And yeah, here we go. Just to start the year, he's missing more often. That's why you end up with an OPS that does not match a very bleak average. Yeah,
and it's weird because in Teal's case, like that was like the last thing I was worried about. You know what I mean? So I hope it ends up working out because I like him a lot as a catching prospect. To ask a couple of the commenters in the chat, yes, I would probably still pick Teel over Rushing and Ethan Salas for sure. Ethan Salas, I think, is still a ways away, as talented as he is. And Rushing, I think that Teal's overall tools, his overall package is better than what Rushing has to offer. Even though I admit that Rushing has a couple tools where his ceiling might be a little bit higher.
Yeah, Ethan Salas, I'm still waiting for that. You know, I understand that this is an 18-year-old, and this is an 18-year-old who keeps getting challenged, but under 600 OPS last year. Like, I need to see a flash before I start Diego Cartaya-ing him a little bit. So I understand. Toolsy, talent. But, you know, at this point, we're in year 3. He's been challenged plenty. Got to get some prove it. Got to get some cracks in that facade before I start saying, yeah, top catching prospect in baseball.
Yeah, 100%. Big fan. Hope it works out. I suspect in a couple weeks when we talk about him, he's going to be on the other end of this.
100% agreed. But at the very least, there was some early chatter about moving him right on to the MLB roster, like when he really started getting in gear a couple of years ago, the fast track. And I'm glad that he didn't get fast track because he could be in the same spot as a couple of these guys. But one final point here. Anyone who did make a major league roster who he had high expectations for, who in your mind is getting closer to a demotion off the big league roster rather than reaching the peak that we foresaw for them?
Well, the first one's the Braves' Drake Baldwin, but it's not really anything that he's done wrong necessarily. He hasn't been great. He's had some hard hit balls that have just found gloves. But the bigger problem is that Sean Murphy came back really quickly, and now no one can get Sean Murphy out, so the Braves are playing Murphy constantly, which means that Baldwin's just not going to get a lot of playing time. I don't think they're going to be doing this, keep him around, playing him once a week type thing for very long. He's too valuable as a prospect to them. He should go back to AAA. I suspect that will happen relatively soon once they kind of decide on who the backup catcher should be in the event that they send him down. But he's a guy that right now I like a lot. I am hopeful that he will kind of, turn into something. But but I think that he's going to not be long for the big league roster. This is not a guy you want to waste on your bench. And the other guy, I mean, there's some arguments for some of these others, but the Nationals are going to have to take a long look in the mirror soon about Dylan Cruz. I mean, again, I love the talent. I know he was the second overall pick in the draft. I loved that draft pick when it happened. And I think that he's going to be a very good baseball player, but they moved him very quickly. And he's hitting like 106 right now and looks completely overmatched in the big leagues. This is a pretty fun Nationals team right now. James Wood is obviously insane. And they have guys like CJ Abrams, Mackenzie Gore, just guys who can play and could actually make a run at the wild card spot. But one of your top prospects right now is batting 8th or 9th every day and clearly is not making much in the way of progress. Had a pretty good debut last year, so maybe he gets a little bit of a longer leash. But I would be on board with sending Cruz down for a bit, just so that he can get some reps, find some success, find his confidence again, because he just hasn't looked particularly good at the plate to me.
Yep, my NL Rookie of the Year pick as well. My preseason picks both in the gutter for various reasons, but it is true so far, and we will definitely see if he can match the hype. It's going to take longer than maybe some, including maybe me, anticipated. Eric Cole, thank you for joining me again. Happy Tuesday. Again, we always do this show every Tuesday at noon during the break in the minor league action to assess what you might have missed and hopefully bring on some experts to help flesh out our coverage. We'll have interviews. We will have players on the show. We really appreciate everybody sticking with us to supplement our coverage, and we hope you enjoy what you get every Tuesday on the Prospect Show. Tell your friends, subscribe on YouTube, join. That's how you get in the Discord, or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. We will take audio listeners as well. We will take rating and reviewing. We will take whatever you are able to provide as long as you are honest with us. Again, 5 stars or no stars. That 3-star stuff, I don't know what that does. Don't do that. Just give us the 5 or give us the 0 or give us the nothing at all. But we love hearing from you. Thank you for your questions. And thank you for your viewing. Eric, thank you for joining me and helping me with the show.
It was an absolute blast as always. Hopefully we get some more promotion news soon. I suspect we might be waiting a little bit, and stay tuned, folks, because we definitely gonna have some guests coming down the pipeline here soon to talk, about whether it's their careers or just talk with other experts like we did with Jim Callis a few weeks ago. This is a show you're gonna want to keep an eye on, because as the season progresses, we're gonna have a lot of fun with it.
Yep, it only gets more fun from here. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. If you're watching live, if you're watching after the fact, we appreciate you. We're glad to have you. For Eric Cole, I'm Adam Weinrib. Take care, and we will see you next week.